Okay, so I've maybe put off this instructor exam enough. In terms of a tool, I'm going to try to build this thing. This is a gouache face scraper. Yes, it's a real thing, if you can believe it. But because it is sort of odd shapes, it requires some skill in FreeCAD. So we're starting with a part design, and we'll use a start a new sketch. And because this is an odd shape, it's scary to start thinking about drawing this in FreeCAD, right? Well, this is the way I found to do this, which was use endpoints with rims. So using a really controlled kind of geometry. And as you start the next one, try to start right on the previous point. It'll highlight a little bit yellow for you. You know, get somewhere close to the, quickly sketching the geometry, get somewhere close. And then once you have this base kind of structure, there are some steps in FreeCAD which are very much about parameters and quite useful. Been finding this interesting shift in my use of software. I've been using it for architectural design for many years now, but this is let's try that one again. This is really a different way to think about it, where it's entirely driven by constraints, actually. So what I was, in terms of managing the constraints, then what you can do is select an arc, a point, and another arc, and under this constraint menu, tell that you want them to be tangent. So really, you're starting to set up a drawing that would make any kind of road engineer quite happy. When you're dealing with curves, the goal is always to have radiuses tangent to each other, perpendicular to each other. So this constraint lets you set that up all the way around. You might find you have to add some pieces of straight line in order for this to work, and then close the full geometry, but it is possible. So here, like this, I don't have it touching, so I'm going to just add a line there in case it doesn't end up wanting to work otherwise. So still doing the tangency, putting the constraint of tangency all the way around. Okay, so one more here. Let's see if it will do it. Sometimes it'll tell you if there's too many constraints, and it makes it so you can't actually build the thing. It looks like we got it. And so once you have that geometry set, I'm going to try to modify this in a couple ways. You extrude, so it's a pad. This pad was 8 millimeters. Yeah, 8 millimeters thick. And I'm going to use the involute gear command to add a gear. I'm using the same, now this is 100 diameter divided by 150 teeth. It's giving it its dimension so that it matches the same arc. And the gears, these act just like a sketch. So from that you can make a pad and give it 10 parameters, say OK. So now you have 2 pads, one based on that form, one based on this gear. I'm going to add another sketch to modify the form. Use a circle here to reduce some of the volume of material being used. Okay, so that I want to add to this that pocket on that surface. Let's see if I can see this with a shaded view. So I'm going to select that surface, put that sketch onto the surface that I just drew there. Okay, and then that's the size we want to go with, and then based on that create a pocket, and if the pocket's larger than the thickness of the pad it will go right through, such as this. Now the other piece I'm modifying, I'm trying to cut this from that, and the command there is actually under part, and it's a Boolean function, so when you select these two things, the pad and that pad, it's going to let me select it. Or maybe it has to be the pocket. Alright, select those two things and then Boolean between them. I'm just going to make a cut of those two shapes, so we should be cutting out that edge. There we go. And the other thing I want to do to try to make this the most usable, eventually maybe print it in stone, but it is to put a radius on these edges, so I'm going to use this fillet command. I'm starting to have a headache. Getting maybe too complex. Give that fillet 3. So one of the things I still need to do with this is place it appropriately. So for that I'm going to use a merge project, and I use the gear that I want to try to locate it by. So there's the gear, and you can see how the piece is not lining up with that. So I'm going to try to select the whole thing and move it according to this assembly move, so that the teeth could line up appropriately. Yeah. So now you can delete this piece and everything associated with it there, and save this new part as the one that has been placed. So to get those bevels to work, then you want to save as an STL file, so that you can open in the Cura program, and wherever we save that, there it is, the gua sha STL. So a couple things I have to do here are actually change the size, doubling it, trying to get the teeth to print. There's a function between the nozzle size and the size of the teeth. I think that isn't quite working, but one of the other major things I was struggling with here was getting the layers to print, and that was literally in here, cut off bottom of object by 1 millimeter. If that's at 0, you don't have any of those surrounding layers, even though it was set to use them. So if you're not seeing those, you can cut off a little bit and then print. You see a few attempts here. This was the smaller size, couldn't come near the teeth, but these teeth are starting to form. And on the most recent version here, still some quality control issues, but the teeth are starting to appear better. Maybe change the flow speed to get a different kind of surface. And again, the goal is to be printing these with stone dust, so we'll see. I have a ways to go in product development. Thanks for watching.